This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Nun, and all the learning for this month, the month of Teves, has been sponsored as a incredible schos aliyas neshama for Aryeh ben Ya'akov v'siyata d'shmaya. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aryeh ben Ya'akov closer to the Kisei HaKavod, higher in Gan Eden Shel Ma'ila. Pick it up on the bottom of Memtes Amid Beis at the Mishnah. This Mishnah continues the Dalit Avos Nezikin and the Masechta began with a while back. Says the Mishnah, the dinim of bar. Ha-chayver bar b'shas harabi ishas ha-yachid. Someone digs a pit in Rishas ha-yachid u'pischa l'Rishas harabim. And the opening of this pit is open into Rishas harabim. Oy, the flip case. B'shas harabim pischa l'Rishas ha-yachid. B'shas ha-yachid u'pischa l'Rishas ha-yachid. So three permutations. I think a pit of my Rishas open into Rishas harabim. Rishas harabim open into my Rishas, or my Rishas open into my Rishas. In all of these cases, says the Mishnah, my Rishas, excuse me, to someone else's Rishas Yachid, Rishas Yachid, Episcol, Rishas Yachid, Acher, Chayiv. In all these cases, this is the damager of bar. Says the Gemara, Tanurabanan, HaChayve bar Rishas Yachid, Upaschal, Rishas harabim. Someone takes the pit in Rishas Yachid, opening into Rishas harabim, Chayiv, Zehu bar Amar B'Torah. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. This is the bar of the Torah. We'll see exactly what he's, of course, adding with those words. But this is the bar of Amar B'Torah. These are the words of Rabbi Yishmael. Comes along Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Says Rabbi Akiva, Hefker Rishusai. If someone is a mafkir, makes ownerless his rishas, v'loi hefker bayrei, but doesn't make the bar ownerless, zehu bar ha'amar b'Torah. That is the bar that the Torah is talking about. So says the Gemara, what exactly is this machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva? Says Rabba, Amar Rabba, 5 lines from the bottom. If the bar is in Rishus harabim, everyone agrees. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees that you're chayim ha'itaima, caused an explicit pasuk. Amar kram ki yiftach. If you dig v'chiyich, if you open, or v'chiyich, if you dig a pit, im al psicha chayiv ala kriya l'kol shkein. What is the pasuk teaching me? If you're chayiv for just opening the pit, the psicha ala kriya for digging the pit, certainly you're chayiv. So why did the pasuk have to say ki yichre and ki yiftach? Ella, the pasuk teaches us shall iske psicha val iske kriya baloi. The pasuk is teaching us for the matter of digging and for the matter of opening the pit, not necessarily the ownership of it. And therefore, what does this teach us? That according to everyone, if you have a good old-fashioned bar, Bershus Harabim, which of course is in an area that would damage, then it's going to be chayiv. So what is the machlekes of Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva? Lo nechliku, as we turn over to Daf Nun Amud Aleph, lo nechliku ella bewat bebar bershusai. The machlekes of Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is when one has a bar in his own rishos. Rabbi Akiva savar holds Rabbi Akiva bar bershusai nami chayiv. Even a bar in your own rishos, one is going to be liable on. Why? It says in the pasuk, explains Rabbi Akiva balabar bebar deisli bailim kamerachmana. A bar that has bailim, that has an owner, and therefore even a bar bershusai, one is liable on. Rabbi Yishmael savar no balatakala. Explains Rabbi Yishmael that what do we explains Rabbi Yishmael, excuse me, what do we explain the Bal Habar to mean? The owner of the Bal of the Takala. However, the pit itself has to be ownerless, or else one is not chayiv. So according to Rabbi Akiva, you're chayiv in all cases, whether it's Rishus HaRabim, whether it's Rishus HaYachid. According to Rabbi Yishmael, it's not true. One is only chayiv if it's Rishus HaRabim. But Rishus HaYachid, one will not be chayiv. Ella says the Gemara 4 lines down, Nunam and Aleph, Elamai Zehu Bar, Ha'omer Bat Taira. What did Rabbi Akiva add on those interesting words? That this is the bar that the Torah spoke about to come. Rabbi Akiva explains the Gemara. Zeu bar shepasach b'yakasav techila. This is the bar that the Torah began with le tashlumim to discuss the dinim of tashlumim, and that is the basic machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yosef Amar, and again, if you remind yourself, looking back to the bottom of Mem Tesam base, this is how Rabbah explains that a barber is Rabbim Kuliam B'Loi Pligi, and rather the machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is barber Yachid. Rabbi Yosef Amar comes along Rabbi Yosef 7 lines down to Nun Amud Aleph. Says Rabbi Yosef, no, Bebar Rishus Yachid. Everyone agrees the bar in your own Rishus Chayiv. My time, what's the reason? According to Rabbi Yosef, everyone agrees this drasha askinan that if we have a bar with bailim, you're chayiv bal habar, and therefore a bar Rishus Yachid, everyone's gonna agree you are chayiv. What's the machlekes of Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva? Keep ligi bibar b'rishus harabim. The exact flip case. And now explains Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yishmael, Savar. What's the story of the bar b'rishus harabim? Bar b'rishus harabim nami chayiv. Why? Tichsev, the pasuk says ki yiftach and ki yichre. And so what does the pasuk teach me? And therefore it's just a rabbim. Explains Rabbi Yishmael. One will be chayiv. Rabbi Akiva comes along Rabbi Akiva and he explains, Hanu mitzrach srichi. No, I need both words. Why? Because Rachmana kiftach avamina. If you open a pit, that will suffice bikisoi with covering it. Kaira, but if you dig it, lo sagile bikisoi will not suffice with covering adeditayim lay, and perhaps one would only be if he filled it back in. Adeditayim lay till he fills back in the pasuk, and therefore the pasuk says ki yechre and ki yiftach to show us that you do not need to cover it up. You do not need to fill it up. Covering it up would suffice. And similarly, because Rachmana ki yechra amina kriyo debai kisui. If you dig it, that's when you need to cover it up. Why? Misham da'avin ma'isa. Avol Paiseach on the last narrow line. But if you merely open the pit, Lavin Maisa, you didn't do a proper Maisa on this bar. Why didn't you do a Maisa? Because you were not the one that dug it. Ema, so we would think, Kisoinami, Loi Bai, maybe you don't even need to cover it. Kamash Malan, you have to cover it. And we conclude. The Pshat of Rav Yosef says the Gemara of Elamai Zehu Bar Hamer Bat Teira to come Rabbi Yishmael. So we have a machlekes Rabbah and Rav Yossi as to what is the machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Says Rabbah the argument about Rishus Harabim. Says Rabbi Yosef the argument about Rishus HaYachid. Meisvei on the third white line of Nun Amud Aleph asks the Gemara on Rabbi Yosef, who said they're arguing particularly in Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaRabim, everyone holds it's chayiv meisvei. HaChayv bar Rishus HaRabim Rishus HaYachid. Says the Brayso, you dig a bar Rishus HaRabim and it's open to Rishus HaYachid potter. V'aval b'chein rashay laso is kain. You're not allowed to do this. Lefi, why? Shein oisin chalal tachas Rishus HaRabim. You're not allowed to make a hole, a cavity under Rishus HaRabim. But you're going to be potter. Case number 2, someone digs wells, clefts, niches, different types of pits, basically just different shapes and whatnot in Rishus HaYachid. Then you're chayiv. Case number 3, you dig a bar to the yachid that's next door to Shazram. Kigain. For example, those who dig Leushin, Rashi explains it's for a foundation of their house, which goes until the property line, right, bordering Shazarabim. Potter, the lacha is, he is Potter. Says Rav Yosef, no. The only time you're going to be Potter is if you either made a fence, a wall, or you distanced the hole from the place that people walk. Arba Tvachim. That's the Brisa. Now, with such a Brisa, explains the Gemara the Kasher of Yosef. What do we see? Taima delushin, that you're digging next door to Shazarabim for leushim, for the foundation of lavlushin. If that wasn't the reason, then what would it then be chayiv? Hamani. So who is this opinion that's going to hold that you're going to be chayiv when you're digging on the bordering of Shazarabim if it's not for the foundation of your house? Bish of the Rabbam. How are we going to explain this Brisa? Reisha Rabbi Yishmael v'Seifa Rabbi Yaisi. In the Reisha, when one is Potter, when it's in your Yachid, that's Rabbi Yishmael. In the Seifa, that if he digs for the foundation, he's chayiv. That's Rabbi Akiva. Ela Rabbi Yosef, that he holds that what? He holds that they're arguing about or sayachid. Bishlam is saying different kol. In the Sefer works out that it's going to be everyone that when you dig in or sayachid you're chayiv. Ela Reisha minat money, but the Reisha which says that you're Potter when you dig in or sayachid. Loi Rabbi Yishmael v'loi Rabbi Akiva, because according to Rabbi Yosef they both hold one is liable b'rsei yachid. Amilcha Rabbi Yosef will answer kula divrei hakol. No, the whole brisa is everyone. And what for Reisha? Shloi hefker loi reshusai v'loi bayrai. The Reisha is you were not mafker anything, and that is the reason why he's going to be Potter, because for all intents and purposes, the guy just walked into his backyard. Amar Rav Ashi. So now the Gemara flips it. And let's ask on Shitas Rabbah that they argue in Yachid. Amar Rav Ashi. Hashtadu to the Rav Yosef the call the Rabbah. Now that you explain the Brisa according to Rav Yosef, the Divrei Kol the Rambanami lo Sukma Kitanoi. According to Rabbah, we should explain it as well. Excuse me, you do not have to explain that the beginning is Rabbi Yishmael and then it's Rabbi Akiva, but rather in the Reish Rabbi Yishmael, say V'nami Rabbi Yishmael. And what? V'taima de le'ushin, alav le'ushin, chayiv. But if not le'ushin, it would be chayiv. Why? Kon the arvach l'rishus harabim. He's making area, wider area for rishus harabim. So says Rav Ashi, we can even explain, according to Rabbah, that this brisa fits with everyone. Meisvei, the Gemara tries one more time another kasha on Rav Yosef. Ha'chayver bar b'rishos ha'yachid u'pis chaler shesarabim chayiv. But it's a shesayachid, as bichol shesarabim, Potter. B'shlam l'Rabbah kul Rav Yishmael, el Rav Yosef b'shlam l'reish Rav Yishmael. No, I'll tell you it's a case you're digging for the foundation, and everyone will agree to such a thing. Tanu Rabbanad. Once we're on the topic of digging pits, says the Gemara, let's get another case of one who digs Bershus Harabim. Tanu Rabbanad, we're at the two dots, approximately 15 lines to the bottom of Nun Amud Aleph. Tanu Rabbanan chafaru pasachu masar li-rabim. If one dug a pit and he left it uncovered, and then what did he do? He let the rabbim use it as a well. What's the halacha? Potter. He's Potter. But chafaru pasach v'loi masar li-rabim chayiv. V'chein min hagush al nechunya Chayfer Bayrai Shichanu Ma'ayrais. This was what Rav Nechanya, the well digger, would do. That what Sheyachayfer Upaiseach Umasar LeRabim. Sheshamu Chachamim Davar Amru Kayim Zeh Halacha Zu Halacha Zu V'Sulai. What? He only was a kind this one halacha. Eleima Af Halacha Zu. And the Gemara now takes a little short detour with some stories based on the previous Gemara. Tana Rabbanon. 2 dots about 10 lines down. Maisa, there was a story. With Rav Nechanya the well digger, that what happened? She found a tremendous pit. Ideas of Nechanya ben Daisa came to Rav Nechanya ben Daisa. Shari Shaina the first hour, Amrlam Shalom, Shni Amrlam Shalom, Shni Shiz Amrlam. Also, she already has emerged unharmed from the pit. Amrullah, Mihelcha. They asked who brought you up. Amr Lahem, Zachar Shal Rachailim Nizlam bin Li. She responds that there was a, Zachar Shal Rachailim, a male of the sheep literally came my way, Li. And there was a certain elderly person leading it. Amrullah Naviata. So they said, Rechlina ben Daisa, are you a Navi? How do you know she came up unarmed? Amrlam Navi Anoichi. Ben Navi Anoichi Kach Amarti Davar Shaisa Sadik Mitzayr by Yikashal by Zara. What? How could it be? It's impossible. Something that the Sadik of Chanina Chayfer Rav Nechanya, excuse me. The well digger, his child is going to be harmed by a well. It couldn't be. That's why I know that she came up unscathed. Amr Ravach Aval Pikein Ben Meis. Aval Pikein Meis Ben Noi Bitsama. The son died in thirst. Shenemar. The pasuk says that what's the reason? Even though Rav Nechanya was a tzaddik, he still got punished that his son was nifter with thirst. Hashem is very medactic with his tzaddikim, and therefore for some small infraction, that's why Rav Nechanya's son was nifter from thirst. Rav Nechanya Amar Me'achab Al Naretz was Kedashim. Another pasuk, Kedashim Rabba V'Neira Al Kol Tzvivav. Just parenthetically, Rav Shimshon Pincus in Sharon B'Tfilah that we learned, he asked an obvious kasha, saying it's a punishment, okay. But what happened to the whole Gemara that said that Rav Nechanya, he dug wells, so no way that his child will die from wells. So how to die from thirst? It's the same issue. I understand that the Sadiqim are medactic Charat. But how can he die from such a death? So Shimshon Pincus says, incredibly, based on the Mefarshim, that the story was that Rav Chanina ben Daisa was no longer alive. So while Rav Chanina ben Daisa was alive, he was able, he was able to taina and argue with Hashem that no, there's no way this girl could die from this entity because the father dug wells. But after Rav Chanina ben Daisa was no longer, there's no one to daven in such a manner to Hashem, and that's why the son was nifter. Amar Rav Chanina, says the Gemara 2 lines at the bottom. Anyone who says Hashem, he doesn't really care about Averis. Yavatur Chayav, his life will be disregarded. Of course, everything is perfect by Hashem. What is the meaning of the pasuk as we turn over to Nunam Beis? Erech Apayim, Erech Af. What is the Apayim, the plural? Erech Apayim, Litstaka. That's what it means. Erech Apayim, Hashem is slow to anger, both for the Rishayim and for the righteous. Sadiqim Uler Rishayim. And we move over to Nunam Beis. We're on the second line. Tana Rabbanan, says the Braisa, Lo Yisa Kel Adam Rishus, others the Rabbim. What a person is not allowed to clear away the stones from his own property to the Shus Rabbim. Ma'isa Badam Echad. Shaya Misakel Mir Shusadr Rabim. Nimsu Chassid Echad. And that Chassid Amar Lai Reikam Neimata Misakel Sheinu Shalai. What are you doing? Clearing away stones for Rabim in front of your Shus that's not yours? L'Rishos Shalach, L'Galgal Alav, L'Yamim Nitzrach, Limchar Sadeu, he had to sell his field. Vayamahalech, Baiser Sravin, Echashel, Baisa Avanim, and he tripped on those stones. Amar Yafa, Amar Liyoisa Chasim, and they mat, Amisaka, Rishos She'ena Shalach, Rishos Shalach. We see from here the care one has to have about what he puts into Rishos Rabbim, etc. And with that, we move on to the Mishnah. A quarter of the way down, Nun Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, Chayver bar Rishos Rabbim v'nafal l'teichei Sharach Hamar. Someone digs a pit of Rishos Rabbim and a Sharach Hamar falls in Chayiv. Echad Chayver bar Shtiach u'ma'ira charitzim and eats in Chayiv. Any form of pit, cleft, cave that one dug, it's all the same, and he's obligated for all of them. Im Kain asked the Gemara, Lama Nemar bar. Why does the pasuk say a bar? Ma bar sheish bo k'tei la'amis asar t'fachim. I've called sheish bo k'tei la'amis asar t'fachim. When it's liable, once the pit, once the excavated area is 10 t'fachim. Haypchusim me asar t'fachim. If less than 7 ola toiche sharach hamar meis potter. But vim huzik bahen, then he's going to be chayif. So says the Gemara, let's understand what is the chiyuv of someone who digs a pit, and we begin the Gemara towards the halfway mark of Nunam Beis. Amar Rav bar shechayvo alav teira lehevloi v'lechavotoi. Says Rav, what is the obligation of a bar? The obligation of a bar, says Rav, is lehevloi, is due to the foul air, the hevel inside the pit, but not for the impact, the fall that happens inside the pit. Alma Kasavar says the Gemara, Chavota Karka Ilam Hu Demaskile, that the bang in the bottom of the pit is not mine, it's regular karka. Ushmuel Amar no, Lehavloi V'koshkin Lechavotoi. V'im Taimar, and if you're going to ask Lechavotoi, Amra Taira, V'loi Lehavloi, if you're going to ask on Shmuel that what the Torah said you're chayav for the hevel and not for, the Torah said the Torah only spoke of getting hit by the bar, not the hevel. Even though there's poles and blankets at the bottom, so there's no damage, but there's still the foul air. Says the Gemara, "My beinayu." What is the practical ramification between Rav and Shmuel? Like beinayu da'ave gaiva mershus harabim. The nafkamina is going to be where you didn't make a pit in mershus harabim. You made an elevated area, and an animal went up there, and then the animal died. Le Rav, according to Rav, loy mechayev. Whereas according to Shmuel, in this case of an elevated platform that the animal goes up, falls off, and gets damaged, le Shmuel, a goiv and naim mechayev. Says the Gemara, my time with the Rav. Damar Krav Nafal, Ache Yipol Derech Nafila has to be falling. Shmuel V'Nafal, what does he say? Go do mashma. Falling refers to any manner, even if one climbs onto an elevator, then falls. Tinan, we learned in a Mishnah, asks the Gemara on Rav, in Kein Laman Emra Bar, Mabar Sheish V'Gdei Lamis Azar Tvachim. Av Kol Sheish V'Aret Lahamis Asara Tvachim. So the Gemara articulates what's the kasha Bishlam Lishmol Av Kol Esuyei Goiva. This is coming Gufa to explain and to expand and to include the case of the Goiva, the case of someone who built something high up, an animal climbs up and falls. That's the same chiyuv. But ask the Gemara El Rav, according to Rav, Av Kol Esuyei Mai. What's it coming to include? Says Gemara Lasuyei Charitzim Uneitzim. Charitzim Eitzim V'Hediyah Ketani Lu. It explains it in the Brayso. Tani V'Hadar Mefarish. Ani Kulu. Tani V'Hadar Mefarish that the Brayso explains, and then goes back and explains again. And we wrap up today's shiur 10 lines from the white lines. V'Hadar Mefarish. V'Hani Kulu Diktani Lamali. Asks the Gemara, I don't understand. Why did the Mishnah have to list all these different cases? It could have just said bar, and we'll figure out any type of excavated area that damages. explains the Gemara, Sricha bar havamina bar asara this may have that's when it's foul air misham they continue kricha. What's the reason? Because it's small and round, so the smelly air inside. Avasicha the arich ema basara last may have alasiach is by definition a longer area, so maybe there's no hevel. V'itana siach havamina siach asara who this may have Allah misham de katin. What's the reason? Because it's long and narrow. Aval ma'ara, when it comes to ma'ara, a cave, that a cave is more squared off. Ema ba'asara less behavala. V'itan ma'ara havamina ma'ara ba'asara hu de'is behavala. Misham de metaltali. The reason why a ma'ara there's going to be, it will be potential issue is why this way mishum metaltla because it's covered, so all the bad air stays there. Aval charitzin metaltli ema basara less buaval. I would think that in the charitz in the ditch there's no havel at 10 tvach. Vitan charitzim have amin on the first wide line. Charitzin asaru des behavel mishum the last beiravicha is no, it's not so big milel tfei mitatai more than the bottom. Aval neitzin there avichel milmal tfei milel. It's wider on top and the area in the bottom. Ema basara less behavala kamash malon. So that's the chiddush. And in all these cases they have the same din, that one would be liable, that there's both hevel and the baying of the animal. Stop over here. I'll pick it up from the Tanan, the third line into the medium-sized line, and the next year. Psiata.